Hi everyone, I'm Amber. Welcome to my channel. Today we're having sort of a discussion on the three movies from Jordan Peele that I watched. Originally I wanted to just watch Nope, which is the new one, but I can't stream it yet. And then Us and Get Out. Those are the three that I wanted to see. And then my friend was like, you should see Candyman because it's sort of in that realm of what you are thinking about watching with him. And I was like, okay, I know he's done other movies and worked on other movies and stuff like that, but I wanted those movies because I heard that they're very good. I heard a lot about them when I was in grad school because they have all these different components that are metaphors for society and about the mind and stuff like that. And they just looked like really good movies, and I really wanted to see them, and I felt like such an outsider not seeing them, being a college student and just not watching them, because it was during that time when I was very heavily depressed and everything, so I just didn't end up watching them. And so I was like, I want to watch them, but I don't know when. And then I finally was like, well, we have time. We're on break. It's summer. Let's do this before we have to go back to school and work with the kiddos. So I binge watched all three of them, and Nope, I hope to watch soon and do a review on. Now that I have some more insight, it's I knew what they were about, sort of, but I didn't really know so much, and I knew that it was just kind of a lot of things having to do with race and again the mind and theories and stuff like that. Especially when I was in my theory classes, in grad school, Us had just came out when I was in my first year, and I was taking my first real theory class. I had taken one before in my undergrad. It was weird, didn't really like it. Professor, that was a whole other thing. Professor was very strange. And I'm strange, so for him to be strange, for me that was something else. Anyway, but it was my first real theory class, and I'm not one to a lot of my grad friends, they can drop a theory in a conversation. I can't do that. I honestly, I cannot just remember them like that. I know what you're saying, if you explain it, and I'm like, oh, okay. But if you just drop in oh, Freud, Freud I know mainly about, but the theory, I'm like, yeah. It's and if you don't explain what theory it is, it's I don't know what you're saying, even though I've studied it, because that part of my brain is just theories. And it's just I know, as a lit student, or having been a lit student, I am supposed to know these and had to go through those classes. And it's weird because at the end I kind of enjoyed those classes because I like, going through and analyzing the mind and stuff like that. But when you actually read a textbook with theories and the list and going through each of them and analyze, it's a headache. It's a lot. So if you mention one that I can remember, and I'm like, hey, that's fine. But it's not something that I just bring up. It's something that I am aware of, but it's just not my vibe. And I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors and being like, I just don't like theories. When I was basically starting my grad program, he's like, well, you're gonna have to take them if you want to be a lit student. And I'm like, can't get around them. He's like, you can't get around them. And I'm like, I felt wrong that I didn't like them, and until this day I still don't like them, but I find them interesting, and they are in my genre of study. I do if I end up, I do want to do a PhD, but whenever I end up doing it, I do want to study the mind and stuff like that. And I know I'm gonna have to go into that, but I think with PhD, I'm gonna go more into Freud because he is the theorist that I was like, dude, I get you. You still complicated, but I get you. Um, it's not that I didn't get the rest. It's just lots of repetitive words and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, once I got what we were talking about, I'm like, I can talk about it. But if you just say the theorist and the theory, I am clueless half the time, and my mind can't just be drop it, in a conversation, look, I'm smart. That's just me. I don't feel like I talk smart at all. And I think I did a video about that. But that's okay because I have a grad degree and I worked hard for that and I had fun while doing it, even if I didn't understand everything I was doing when I first started doing it. And I think I've said this story before on this channel, but in case you didn't hear it, or don't know what video it is, I don't even know what video it was. It was one video when I went off on a tangent, or maybe I have it. I don't know. But I remember being in my theory class, first, second week, and the professor calls on me. Funny enough, this ended up being the professor. I think I did say this story. That ended up being like one of my favorite professors. He hooded me during my hooding ceremony. That's a thing that we do at the end of grad school, like just like with our cap and gown and like you did it, kind of thing. And he asked me, he's like, what does this mean? And he was like, or well, what do you think about this? And I literally was just like, in grad classes are usually later on in the day. So this class started at 6 o'clock and ended like almost close to 10. So my brain, like, and now I stay up until like 2 in the morning and I don't like it, but I'm like, how could I not do that back then? COVID things does weird things to you. But anyway, yeah, during the COVID time, I ended up just developing the ability to sleep late. So I was tired. I was mentally not all there, going through depression, and I was in my first year of grad school, and I was just like, I don't know. And he was just like, what do you mean you don't know? And the rest, it just got quiet. And it was just kind of one of those moments where I was just kind of like, why am I here? How did I get here? Am I smart? Everyone's looking at me like I'm dumb. What is happening? And somehow I ended up doing very well in the class and passing, and I loved the class and everything. And they ended up being some of my favorite classes, and I took another class with him. Progress! But anyway, enough talk about theories, but I feel like I need to talk about it in order to explain why I didn't watch these movies and how they came about in my life. So this movie came out. We were talking about some kind of theory where it was like a projection of yourself. And that projection of yourself like has like all these like negative components and stuff like that. And they were like, what movies encompass this theory and blah blah blah, and I was like, Us. And I hadn't even seen it because I just knew because I had seen the trailers and people had been talking about it, and it was this thing that was going around like in college, and like people had seen it, and it was like, oh my goodness, like it has to do with this, and we can like relate it to all these different things. And I was just like, I have not seen this movie. And so then like years down the line, here we are, a week ago, maybe like last Thursday, sitting down. I'm like, it's time. And I'm like, it's time. And I wanted to watch Us first. I knew I should have watched like I watched it like in reverse order. I watched Us first, then I watched Get Out, then I watched Candyman. I just wanted to watch that one in particular because I remember like that was the one that I really really wanted to see. And then I knew I wanted to see Get Out. And then Candyman was kind of just like the extra like one that like I ended up watching. Um and in terms of ranking, I think like I was right to watch Us first because I liked it the most. In terms of like a movie, like it was just a really good can't take your eyes off the screen movie. And I was doing homework while I was doing this, which is a really bad idea, because I was like so done with the homework and I was just like, I want to watch this movie, it's so good. And it was not what I was expecting in terms of plot. And like that's the thing, I like movies about the mind, and like like I don't like sad ones about the mind because I'm always angry, like why it has to be so depressing, or why does that have to be this. But I still like the process of like analyzing it through that lens. But when it comes to like movies like this where it's like there's little it's like the Twilight Zone kind of thing, like I love those. And even though like I don't like theories, I don't know, I'm a complicated person. in terms of like a theoretical, like really good, mentally, like impacting, like breaking apart, looking at the different metaphors kind of movie. I really liked Get Out. And then Candyman was just like its own like separate thing. It was just like it was a horror movie, but then it was also like its own thing. Like, you know, I think Candyman, I think Get Out did what Candyman was trying to do in a lot of ways. Not exactly like to the T, but like it kind of got there. And I feel that even though that was the case, Candyman was still a good movie. There was just still like complicated things going around with it, going along with it, and that I didn't get. But I think it was still a good movie. Now let's get into why I thought those things. So Us, Us, if you haven't seen it yet, is a movie about this like shadow self of you. Like everyone has a shadow self that lives like in these underground tunnels underneath like um what's it called? This always happens to me. The Santa Cruz boardwalk, where they have all the rides and stuff like that. And funny enough, I've been watching a lot of movies and stuff where they mention this particular place. Um, and so, like, in this place, like, they live there. And they're basically like mirroring everything that you do topside. And they grow envious of you because, like, you have the better life, and they are just like using what they have down there in the tunnels to like feed themselves. Like they eat rabbits, and it's just like, and they live like these miserable lives, and like they don't have like what we have where they're just like acting things out. And it's like it's quite depressing. And then obviously topside, like they are just people living their life and everything, and it's about this girl who sees who ends up going there, kind of finding one of the tunnels, and ends up finding her mirror self because she's also doing the same thing. So she also ends up like at the entrance. And then years later she goes back with her family. She ends up developing some kind of PTSD, because of it. The parents were fighting and stuff like that. Things only get worse and everything. But she finds herself through dance, and she ends up having a family. And then she goes back to the boardwalk, and she ends up going back to their like summer home where they're staying at. And then these shadow self people of the whole family, and I'm sorry, my hair is everywhere today. Um, End up at the front door and wanting to play mind games with them, and basically switch places with them, but like they're playing with their food kind of thing, and taunting them. And like she like her mirror self or shadow self is like the person who like arranged this for everybody in the world and everything, so it wasn't just them. And I thought it was originally just going to be this family, and there was going to be like a hidden meaning, because of it. But no, they just kind of showed up. I thought they were going to like follow them. Like they just showed up at the house, and I was just like, okay. um the music, amazing. Sound effects, everything was like so creepy good. And like I said, I was watching this at night and my window was open. I was just like, um, and so like these things, like they're human, like they can be killed, but obviously they have skills, and like they've developed differently than us, and so they're faster, they're quicker, that's the same thing. They're like all these different things that we're not, and they want to like break that bond, that like, so basically kill them so they can take their spot, so that way they can like live the better lives, that they want to. But a lot of them don't speak. They don't. The girl, like she speaks, and I'm always wondering like, why can she speak? Why, and why does she speak? And like, so, like, why is it hard for her? Um, and that is answered at the end of the movie. But like, so this family has to end up being like killers and like kill their mirror selves. I wonder if that does anything to them because they're essentially becoming the other person or their shadow self through killing them because they are now like getting rid of that violent tendency part of themselves, what's supposed to represent that. And so like there's nothing left of that, so obviously it goes to them. At least that's my hypothesis on that. And so like they end up going and like killing like their other halves, and of course the other halves want to kill them, and it's this whole big thing. And then of course it's going on like all around the world, but these people are like dying. Like some of them are fending like themselves off against them, but um like a lot of people are just like dying, and it's showing that this family, there's something special about this family, that they can kill off these things. And it's not until the end that we realize that the little girl, like the shadow girl, switched with the other girl. And so essentially the girl who was in the tunnels was the real little girl. But then again, like didn't she become like the opposite, like once they were switched and once she was in that world, like because she received all the negative, but then of course she knew she was the original, so then she wanted to get back at her. And so that's why she could talk, that's why she was like the special one down there, and all these different things. And I was just like, but doesn't that mean if you were the shadow self and you had these kids were the shadow versions of that, and those kids were the original kid? I'm so confused, but also like it's so crazy and good. And I'm just like, this husband is just like has no idea, like, and these kids like maybe have these like inner angry desires, and just like, what is happening? And the mom is just like, at first I thought the mom was like smiling at the kid, or like looking at the kid and like wondering if like he had been switched or whatever. But no, she was smiling at him because she was like, we got him. And it was just like, I think the kid, like something in him clicked. It was like, ah. And I was like, okay. And it was just like, but okay. Like, so essentially this mom was the shadow self who ended up having the better life and didn't want it taken away from her. But it's like so sad. It is so messed up. But it's like showing that like dark part of us that lives, and like once it's gone, like where does it go to? Um that kind of thing, and all these other like metaphors about like life. And then they try to create the chain. My question is, who created this dumb chain? Because the chain thing, like it was, she had the t-shirt when she was little, so it must have happened or been like created when she was a little girl, and then it came into like full effect or full existence once they were older. Does she see the t-shirt and it was like, I'm gonna do that? Like, how did this happen? How does she like create these commercials? Like, that's what I'm confused about. That is what I'm confused about. But other than that, it was a really good movie. I wanted more stuff to happen at like the carnival boardwalk thing, because I thought that would have been more creepier. But that was because that's what I heard about it, like that it was all there, and that made sense to me. But then it being at the house, I think, like, and then just them moving around and everything, like that was like really cool. And then like there's moments when these these things, like they like copy you and everything. The little boy discovers that, so he's like doing the motions, and the little boy is like, he wants to be him and like is copying the motions. And so it's just like so many moments where I'm like, what, just okay, it makes sense, but why? So yeah. Then I watched, sorry, there's like so many weird noises coming outside my window right now, from outside my window. So then we have Get Out. Get Out is obviously a movie about race and so many different things that come with it. There are these white people who live in like this perfect kind of countryside. I don't even know. And the thing is, I can hear. I don't know if you guys can hear it. But anyway, and they have like people there who are black who like they seem brainwashed, manipulated, who kind of like are like their servants in a lot of ways. Um, and like in the beginning, it shows this one guy getting captured, like just like in the streets. I don't know if it was in the town because the way that they made it seem was that the girl, the daughter, brings the black people to this neighborhood and then they get caught and like brainwashed and everything. But this guy looked like he was just walking in like his neighborhood. So I don't know about that. But the daughter is like the bait that goes out into the world, starts making friends or dating black people, brings them back to this town where people are like, white people who are like, okay, I'm dying. Like, they say that they love the black body, that they have so much like energy, their body is like composed in such a way that they have such great genes and this and that. Like, it's everything that we talk about and think of when we think of people who are black and who are in sports and stuff like that. Like, they have the genes, you know, to grow tall, to have, you know, this and that, which of course, you know, everyone can. But, you know, that's like when they talk, that's a stereotype. um and so like these people, when they are dying, they're like, they want their brains put in these people because then it would make them again alive but better. But then they're also using them still as slaves, so it brings about this question of like, it doesn't matter if we're heading in a better direction, viewing, you know, people who are black in a positive way, there's still all these things going on with white supremacists. And how I don't talk like this normally. Like, I am not a political person in the sense that I can have a conversation without stuttering, because that's when my overthinking, and because it's part of things I went through when I was in that phase in my life. And it's a very heavy thing. And then it's also something it also has something to do with like a childhood thing. But like, um so I start studying. It's not that I don't have knowledge about it, it's not that I can't talk about it, it's just I have a certain way in which I express it, and it's hard for me. And at the same time, I have beliefs and opinions that are also hard for me to express because of this and that. That being said, that is why I may look like I'm stuttering, just putting it out there. But I'm trying. So, and it's really hard when you are a grad student. So, especially ironic, but also telling that that is one of the many reasons, and funny enough, that I am going to be studying the mind and society. And yeah, okay. Um, so, um, it shows that racism is always going to be around no matter how much we try to fix it. At least that's what it's looking like. And then there's these people who say they're not racist, but who are really. And even though, like, there is people out there, like, there's this thing that my, one of my professors in grad school said, that he was like, we're all racist. Especially those who, like, are white and grew up, like, we're all racist. The thing we can do to basically get better at that is better ourselves, and make sure that we have the knowledge and the research, and we are changing ourselves and trying to make better decisions with that. So, but this is kind of like funny because, like, these people who are like, they're either saying that they're not racist and everything, but they're not, in the sense that they are kind of like worshiping the black human body, but they're using it still to their advantage, so there's still like racist tendencies. So it kind of goes with the like everyone is racist no matter like, we're trying to make better decisions, but it's like it can also backfire on us. So I think that was really interesting. Um so it's like kind of like no matter where move the pillow. No matter what we do or where we're at with that, it's just going in this huge circle, and it's never going to be fixed, or so it appears. And like I just really liked those metaphors within this movie. And the fact that the white people were like, and I have friends who are white, so saying white people is just really, really weird for me, but obviously we need to say it for this, for these kind of things. The people in this movie who are white, they really, like, embody the old kind of living in, like, the suburbs, kind of like farmland back in the day kind of feel. And they're very, very bland, but also are very, like, has so much character in that they are manipulative, that they are hiding stuff. The whole, like, they are, what's it called? They're, there's this one lady who basically hypnotizes people, and like she basically like hypnotizes people to the extent where like she can actually put them in this like void, and she does this as a part of the process to the people who are black, so that way they can be stuck there once they I don't know how the process is done, like transfer the person's consciousness, the white individual who is dying, into the black person. Like they just live there and they are not able to like have control of their body, but they're like watching it like a TV, cuz they're still there. It's very creepy. And very, very sad. And there's some like sometimes they can have some little control about it, like control of it. Like there's the lady who like starts crying, but it's like it's not like the grandma who's like in the body. It's like the lady who's trapped, and like it's just kind of like a reflex that just kind of happened. Um, and like the guy who's the main character, he is a photographer. So the fact that it's a flash that ends up like kind of waking them up and everything, it doesn't wake them up fully because they still have that. And I don't know how that is because they never explain. They still have that other conscious living in them, and the individual who the grandpa was invading, but it was was just a human being. Like he like saved the guy, but then he ended up killing himself because it's like he did all this stuff and like he had no control over it, and it's like it messes with your mind. And then he still has this other person living in him, and he can't like you don't want to live with that. And it's just like, oh, it's so many different things. It's so many, and the fact that they like had so many, like I loved how Jordan Peele had so many like funny actors and good actors and actresses in the, like and well known in these movies. Loved it. Like it was so serious, but I was like laughing my head off with like, oh my goodness. Like especially in Get Out, like the one friend, I couldn't. I could like I was just like this, and it's kind of like that comic relief that like Shakespeare has. Like it just kind of like to kind of relieve the tension. I love that. I love that they put that in this movie. So it's not so much like sometimes like it gets to be too much, and I'm like I love that. Loved it. So there's that. And then Candyman was like this. I said that Candyman was Get Out was what Candyman I think attempted to do. Jordan Peele I think was like a producer, or like he worked with someone else. It's not that he didn't like fulfill his vision or like anything like that. I just think that Get Out touched so many different topics of that it ended up being more crisp. When Candyman was just like a lot more complex because they added the horror element to it and everything. and like that complicated things a bit. Just the way they did it. So Candyman is essentially the dead, like it's the ghost of the one of the I don't know if there was something wrong with him mentally, or like, but he really didn't like speak. He was either homeless or something. And he was a black man in a poor black neighborhood. And he obviously had been through some things, and he gave candy to the local children, and one of the kids ended up having, it was a white kid, ended up having a razor blade in their candy. And then uh, the cops started being out to get him, and they found him and beat him to death. And what Candyman is supposed to represent is the black man being prosecuted and blamed all the time by police and people, and they are being stereotyped, and they have to live in poor neighborhoods. It represents just everything that every stereotype that the black man is, or the black person is. And I get that. I just didn't get the whole Helen lie part of it, because she was a white woman. So why would Candyman embody her? Because he kind of like chose people to like be his next like pe- person to like possess in a way, or like speak through, to tell the next chapter in the story, or for something to happen to them to be able to carry on the message. um I notice that a lot of the people who were kind of making fun of the name, and that's part of it, like they are making fun of something that shouldn't be made fun of, um and ended up dying, were people who were white. um the thing is, when the girlfriend said at the end she didn't die, she summoned him to kill those who were doing harm to her. Um, and the man who had died, he told her to tell the story. And at first, she sees him as her boyfriend who was chosen and now is dead. But basically, he ends up morphing back to this guy, and it's like tell the story of like what is happening. And the people who he embodies and sends his message through are also like trying to do that as well. I don't know why he kills them, but I think it like provokes like a message in that sense. What It just made it a little complicated with again the Helen lie part of it. I think maybe just her being like a white woman like brought more attention to it, and that was what it was supposed to be. And also her stealing the child, like this child was supposed to be the next one, like in the future, because he kind of knew what was going to happen, with uh like the whites in the neighborhood and stuff like that. I don't know. And then it was like a white woman stealing a little black baby. Like there's all these little things with that. So I think maybe that's what they were trying to do with it. I'm not sure. And then she was a news reporter lady, so like obviously like it is not the time to be discussing these movies with my window open and it's getting dark and there's weird noises outside. Anyway, so she was this news reporter lady, so that helped get the word out. So maybe that was the plan with that. I didn't really get that until like now that I'm sitting here, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. But it didn't make sense in the movie. Maybe that's like a thing, like an afterthought that like happens, like not an afterthought in terms of like the movie, like an afterthought. It was just like an afterthought where it's like you have to think about it and be like, oh, oh. So I don't know. But I still think Get Out did a little bit better. And so yeah, this guy ends up being like, he goes back to this town that is actually his hometown, and he gets bit by this bee. I don't know why they're bees. Can anyone tell me? Like, I expected flies. They're bees. He gets like stung or bit by a bee, and I think the bee goes in like wait, there's this one scene where I don't want to get descriptive, but like it looks like there's something in it. I don't know. And then he's like, if you have like that phobia of holes and stuff, don't watch. If you have a phobia of like bees, don't watch this movie. Like, do not watch this movie. Um, and then he like it starts infecting his whole arm, and he ends up like, wanting to tell the tale and everything, and this is going on, and nobody's noticing what's happening to his arm, and I'm like, does nobody notice that this thing is getting like worse and worse and worse and worse, and then it ends up covering his whole face, and he ends up being like a beehive. Like, I don't know why the dead guy ended up like maybe like when like something to do with the candy, and like maybe like the bugs. I don't know, but I'm like, why? But okay. um and so yeah, like he ends up being like the next chosen one, and like obviously like he was like chosen since the beginning, and the mom ends up telling him, and it was just like, why, mom, why you tell me now? And then like he's like spreading the message and everything, but then he ends up like dying, and he ends up dying in like, and I think like Candyman somehow knew this, like he ends up dying by the hands of a cop who shoots him, and they end up wanting to change the story about how he died, and it was just like, it was an accident, but you're trying to change the story of how, and that makes it something wrong. And then that's the one, the whole scene happens when she summons Candyman and stuff like that. But it was really an intense movie. And again, I've been in such, it's clear, it's August. Well, it's August tomorrow, but like I've been in such a Halloween mood lately. And the last movie that I watched, with Lana Condor, like that didn't quite hit the bug, no pun intended, with horror. This wasn't quite horror except for Candyman, and I loved it. I loved every single second. I cannot wait till I watch Nope, because I am like so excited. Like, I am beyond excited now. And I knew that I wanted to watch these movies, and I knew I was gonna like, I didn't expect to like them this much. And so now I'm more excited to watch Nope. So, those are, this is my discussion, my review, whatever you want to call it. Um, I spoke for way too long, but it's okay. That happens with me. I have sadly accepted it, but I still try to condense these videos as much as I can. But yeah, so I'm gonna go back to doing homework, which is what I have been doing throughout this whole binge watching process and throughout this whole week. And close the window so I don't hear any more weird noises. Okay, maybe. All right. Bye. Thank you.